Hello and welcome to Our Time.
Oh, thank you, Janice. Lovely to have your company once again.
Yes, it is.
And boy, do we have, this time on Our Time, an action-packed show.
We always have
Who's
an
on?
action-packed show. Well, we have Lauren Callinan is from the Department of Human Services and she's talking about Indigenous Services.
Right, and you're going to do a bit of exercise.
With Cassandra.
Oh, wait and see this. How are your shoulders, by the way?
Actually, yeah, no, they're not too bad.
They'll be better, they'll be better. It's my great pleasure, though, to introduce to you Rodney Fox. Now, Rodney is a shark conservationist and he's just recently written about a book about his life stories. Rodney, welcome to Our Time.
Well, it's great to be here.
Lovely
yes,
to meet
it is
you.
nice.
I've watched you, like me, age. Because you became so famous when a shark literally bit you.
That was when I was 22 years of age and we married just for 4 months at the time. And I was a life insurance salesman at that particular time.
Were you really?
I hope you had a good policy.
They looked after me very, very well. And it's amazing enough, it totally changed my life and literally dragged me into a whole new underwater lifetime. You know, for 50 years, and it was only this last year I went back into the cages, and on my 50th anniversary from my shark attack, I went and had a look at great white sharks and face to face with one and got some great pictures of them again. Yeah.
I mean, having been through that, to even consider going back into the water is just amazing. But then, as you've said, it was just something that drew you in. It was something, very little was known about it, and it had you captured, didn't it?
I was the South Australian spearfishing champion, and I only worked during the week so that I could go diving on the weekend. And in those days, I was one of the first to get a mask and fins in South Australia. And I saw the beauty and all these fish underwater, and they weren't frightened of you. And there was weeds and all sorts of stuff and kelp. And of course, there was always the draw of finding a sunken wreck with gold on it. I mean, now, gold is one of those
Well, it was
things.
possible here in South Australia, wasn't it? Because there are quite a few wrecks.
Well, off of the west coast, there was a lot of those Spanish ones hit. But South Australia, we looked at quite a few, and all we found was some zinc blocks and wheat that had probably been lying down there for ages. But
still amazing.
The underwater world I found was a new world. And I realised I was an explorer. I was a hunter-gatherer, and I went into the championships a year after I won them again, and there were 40 divers and lots of speared fish. And I went out a little bit further after 3 or 4 hours because I wanted to go to an area where no one had been. I dived down, and I was just about to spear a fish, holding my breath, when this huge thump and crash hit me in the chest, knocked the gun out of my hand, the mask off my face, and hurled me through the water at great speed. I thought I'd been hit by a submarine. It was so big.
Really?
And then I realised I was underwater, had to be a giant shark. I gouged around its eyes as hard as I could, and the shark let me go, and I thrust it away with my hand, but my hand went in its mouth, ripping, and before it could chew my arm off, I ripped it out. I ended up with 92 stitches in my hand, only tendon left there, but I didn't know. I grabbed it around the belly and held on.
Wow.
And then I realised I'm holding my breath. I'm about 20 metres underwater, and I got to get to the surface. So I let go, went up to the surface, took a deep breath, looked down, and this big shark with the big white teeth is one of the worst memories I've got, was coming up towards me.
Oh, Rodney.
And I thought, I've nothing to protect myself. And I kicked at it, but the shark turned and swallowed the fish float with fish. But it's dived and dragged me underwater. And as I'm being sucked down, I tried to find the catch to get rid of the belt, but I couldn't find it. And a miracle happened. The line snapped, got to the surface. Boat was coming over to look at all the bright red water. Rolled me in, and an amazing story of then how I got to hospital and all the hospital scenes.
It made the news everywhere.
Yes, it did.
The TV news. Yeah. I think you were probably one of the sort of worst pictures we ever saw at the time, to be honest.
And
in the news.
The interesting thing is, if the shark had just shook its head, which they normally do, it would have just taken that piece out.
And we wouldn't be talking today.
Every rib was broken. My lung was punctured. The main artery from the heart to the stomach was exposed. The spleen was exposed. Just a nick on any of them. It was an absolute miracle. And, you know, I'm now, it's 50 years on. I'm now over 70. And I've been waiting to find out what I was left on earth to do.
Oh, really?
And I thought there could be something special. And I find as I look back now, we've worked on 80 different shark documentaries and films for many countries, worked with many scientists. And what I found out when I was in hospital is that the sharks were getting a really bad deal. Humans have this incredible fear of being eaten alive. It's one of our worst horrific fears. We would rather die in a car accident or struck by lightning or drowned or anything. But a shark attack, nobody wants that.
So what you've done, which I find really interesting, is you've put down quite a lot of your adventures and experiences over the years in this book.
I'm very fortunate that people... I went to the zoo 3 months after my attack and I saw the predators, the lions. I was there with our Kay and my wife and my little niece, and I thought, maybe I can build a cage and go put it in the sea and have a look at the sharks and see if they're as bad as everybody says they are. I'll make up my own mind. And so I designed a 2-man cage. I organised an expedition on a tuna boat.
That's what we're looking at the moment.
Yeah, and there's some bits and pieces on a tuna boat there with Alf Dean, the world record holder, who was a South Australian. He said to me, he said, hang up your gear and go golfing. He said, if you'd seen what I'd seen, you'd never go back in the water again. But I didn't. But I wanted to make up my own mind. And what we ended up was making the cages. We made the first ever films of great whites. And then from all over the world, slowly, 2 or 3 film crews would come per year, and we've made over 80 films and documentaries.
Tell us the Jaws story.
Yeah, tell us the Jaws story.
Jaws. I got a phone call from Hollywood after we'd only made 4 or 5 films, and they wanted us to make a film for a special a shark film. And I thought,
you didn't know it was Jaws
Hollywood's
at the time.
coming to no, just a big shark film. And Jaws, we didn't know that the book had hardly been produced or anything. Anyway, they sent out this midget diver, half-size little man in a half-size cage and a half-size boat, because it's to make the sharks look twice as big.
Big, yeah.
And there's incredible stories in there because the little guy couldn't dive. He was actually a stunt rider for horses. He's a great horseman.
Nothing like it.
It was terrible. But what happened is that we ended up getting a sequence where a big shark got caught in this little cage. The little stuntman wasn't in it. He wouldn't get in. He was too scared to get in. But the shark got caught in it and smashed it into the bottom. And then they got the marine scientist over there to get in it, and they shook it and they intercut bits and pieces. And Spielberg said, if it wasn't for the shots that Rodney Fox and Ron Taylor got, I wouldn't be as famous today as they said, because they changed the thing. But we didn't want to frighten everybody out of the water.
No, exactly.
No, you did.
You have a different respect now, don't you, for what's in the water as opposed to what's on the land?
The land we've got it pretty well under control. We can sleep nights. There's no lions, tigers, bears that'll bite you and jackals or anything. And we're lucky in Australia we didn't have those. But your great-great-great-grandfather, wherever he was, which continent, there was a predator that would eat them.
Yes.
And we have a gene, I'm sure, it's part of our makeup, that we really doesn't want us to be eaten alive. Imagine in a cave, and you know that there could be all sorts of crawly animals that would eat you.
Snake.
Every second of every minute of every day, you're worried that you're going to be eaten, and you're aware. The sharks are the last predator man hasn't got under control. And even today there's things, let's kill them, let's get rid of them all. But we need them in our ocean. Our oceans really are a place where we can't, we
But
can't
Rodney,
put it
it does seem to be, though, that there are more and more people that are being attacked by sharks.
There's more and more people going into the water.
And we're hearing about them more.
And look at those telephones they've got and their pictures. Everybody's got a camera now. Everybody's got a camera. Yeah. And they're taking them and they're sending them to the television stations and stuff.
You were saying before about the balance of nature, like humankind is now eating many of the things that are both in the sea and on land. But if you were saying before, if we ate things evenly, like koalas as opposed to...
Well, if we're going to eat anything and cull, if man is going to do it, he should have culled everything evenly. Or instead of just eating all the snapper and the whiting, which we do, and left all the other fish, we should have taken a bit of everything across there.
Well, Rodney, this is the book, and we'll have some information on our site so that people can find out where to get it. I wish you the best of luck. You're a legend.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks for being part of it.
When I look at the pictures, I realise that I'm so lucky to be here and so happy, but the sharks needed a voice because they were treated so badly. And I'm afraid, and I'm so pleased so many people have picked it up and realise that we need them. And
thank you so much. Now, who's coming up next?
Is it Lauren? I'm not sure. I can't remember who's coming up next.
We're just fascinated
But stay
with the
with
story.
us, please.
Lauren's here from the Department of Human Services with our good friend...
I knew it was Lauren.
Of course you did. With our good friend Peter. We'll be back in a moment on Our Time.
Hello, I'm Peter Sellen. Hope you're enjoying Our Time. Well, the Department of Human Services provides payments to help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people finish their studies and also to support them while they're looking for work. Here to tell us a bit more about it is Department of Human Services Assistant Director, Indigenous Services, Lauren Callinan. Welcome, Lauren. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Now, tell us about your role, first of all, what you do.
Okay, so my role involves working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers of our department, and the primary focus of the team that I work in is to make sure that the payments programs and services offered by our department are accessible, but also cater for the different cultural needs, so to make sure that we provide those services in a sensitive and appropriate manner.
Now, Torres Strait Islanders is, obviously there's lots of different, dialects or whatever in that region, is there? And do you have specialist people, interpreters, that sort of thing?
We do. So we have a range of different specialist officers who work for our department, and their sole aim as well is to make sure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers can access what they need to based on their circumstances and know what to do and where to access help when they need it. So our interpreting service is quite comprehensive. Across the department, we cater for more than 230 international languages.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And
how many of those do you speak?
Absolutely none, other than English.
You've got a lot of helpers. Good on you.
No. We have multilingual officers who do speak Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander dialects. We have a large network of those officers, and they're available either face-to-face in some service centres, but they're always available over the phone.
Okay. So how often would you get to actually travel, do people actually travel to the islands to visit various communities from time to time?
We do. So we have what we call remote visiting teams and different visiting services, and that makes our service more accessible to customers. So we cover a range of metropolitan, regional and remote areas because we understand that our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers do live in all parts of the country, and it's important that regardless of where people live, they still have really good access to the help that they need.
I was going to say, if they don't have like internet links or whatever, do you help them with that sort of physical stuff, or
we do.
How does that work?
So we have an Indigenous Service Officer role, and we have a network of more than 70 of those staff across the country. When we have a policy change, program, guideline, anything that we think may affect families or communities, we take that information out with us, and generally we deliver that information to groups of people. So at times that might be mums and babies groups, other times it might be at men's lunches. Whatever niche we think we need to tap into, we try and make sure that we do the very best we can to get the right messages out.
So the actual service is pretty similar to the one for the mainstream of Australia, obviously. And how many people does this affect, Torres Strait Islander? How many people live in that area, do you know?
In the Torres Straits, I'm not 100% sure of the numbers, but our Aboriginal population across the country is significant, and they make up a significant portion of our total customer base. So it's really important that we make sure that we have processes in place to support this customer group.
So what do you do more of payments thing, or is it evenly spread with the family issues or whatever? How does it split?
It's fairly evenly spread. So the department provides services, Centrelink services, Medicare and child support, and we take in a range of different inquiries. So we have a really good call centre line which our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers are able to ring. It's a free call, 1800 136 380 is the number, and we encourage our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers to call that number for any inquiry. They can also access an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander interpreter through that line as well.
Just got up on the screen there's some details about those phone services and the internet. So what got you into this? I mean, obviously you're keen on this sort of thing. How did you start get involved in it?
I am an Aboriginal person myself. I've worked in the department not only in Indigenous Services but in a range of different areas over the last 14 years. But I think Aboriginal people have a general desire to want to help their community, and I'm certainly one of those people. And this is a way where I think we can influence our delivery to this customer group and really pay attention to their needs.
Okay, so how often would they generally contact you? Is it once a year or every few months, or is it a weekly thing? How do they?
On a needs basis.
Needs basis.
Yeah. So people's circumstances change, and we understand that. And sometimes people need us a lot throughout a particular life event or period. And then in different times, they don't need us so much, and they don't need to rely on our support quite so heavily.
I was going to say, because often if you're in a remote community and something does go wrong, a family member gets sick or dies or something happens out of the ordinary, you're thinking, what do I do? And you guys are the ones they turn to.
We are, but also Aboriginal families generally turn to each other as well. So understanding the cultural needs and the diversity across the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander group is really important.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about, there's an Indigenous apprenticeship program. How does that work? What's all that about?
There is. We're always looking for new Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to join our department, as are the rest of the public service, in fact. So our apprenticeship program is something we're really proud of. This year alone we've taken in more than 200 Indigenous apprentices, not just for our department, but we were asked to do that on behalf of 9 other government agencies across the Commonwealth. So it's a program that seems to be working for us. It encourages lots of people to put in applications and work for the government, and we encourage anybody when the application's open to apply.
I was going to say, is there any age limit? You can be 8 to 80 or whatever. I don't know.
As long as you're happy with the conditions and you identify yourself as an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, we'd encourage you to put your hand up.
Okay, so what else is the department doing to support Indigenous Australians at the moment? What's happening? What's in the pipeline, or what's happening right now?
So recently we've had our Reconciliation Action Plan launched. It's not our first one. We've had several in the past. So this really solidifies our commitment to servicing this group of customers, but also supporting our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff. So we're on a journey, just like many other agencies across the country, Commonwealth and not, to make sure that we provide services and that we're really conscious of the cultural needs and sensitivities of this group of people.
Do you think there's enough awareness in the wider community about the problems and issues that face Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders?
I think there's some awareness, but I think there's always room for improvement. Yeah, and that's not just with the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander culture, that's with a whole range of different cultures.
Right, so it's a fascinating thing to learn that the government provides all this stuff. A lot of people in mainstream would say, oh, we didn't know, we thought it was something, a specialised thing, or that we didn't really know that you guys existed. So now it's a great opportunity to give yourself a bit of a plug. You've got an internet site, a website?
We do. So humanservices.gov.au is where people can access any information across our department. But humanservices.gov.au is /Indigenous is where we can access information that's specific to Indigenous people.
Okay. So the whole scheme has been going for what? It's been going for a little while now, this Torres Strait Islander scheme? We've
recently just celebrated our 40th anniversary of the Indigenous Service Officer role.
Yes.
So it's been in the pipeline for a long time. It hasn't always looked the same. The job has changed and evolved just as the environment changes and people's needs change. But it is a role that's been around for quite a long time, and the Indigenous Service Officers that fill those positions are very proud to hold those positions.
So what are a couple of the common issues that might, apart from the payments, that might be discussed or you guys have to look at?
Health issues relating to the Medicare program, for example, making sure that people have access to adequate health care. Child support issues from families who are no longer in a relationship, and there's a range of different Centrelink inquiries too that people need assistance with.
So there's no, it's often if the lines are busy, I guess people call you back. There's always that sort of interaction. If you ring on a busy time, you're not going to be left out. Yeah.
There is. So there's the 1-800 number that I referred to earlier. If people need an interpreter at any time, they can ring that 1-800 number, or there is a separate number which is 131202, and people can access an interpreter that way if they need it.
So the apprenticeship thing that we mentioned earlier, is there a training program, or is there some kind of qualification that they need to get or study for to be part of that?
Once they enter the department, they spend the first 12 months in a position doing a real job, but as part of their requirements, in that first 12 months they do undertake a formal level of study. I
was going to say.
Usually in a government-related type sector.
They're not thrown in at the deep end.
No, there's lots of support, and that's why our program's successful, because we have a really strong support base sitting around them. So we have more than 1,400 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff within our department, 100 of which are qualified mentors, and we certainly tap into that resource to support our new staff.
It's a fantastic service, and thank you for coming in. All that information, as I said, there's a website, there's the phone number. Lauren, it's been fabulous talking to you. A lot of people may not have known about this at all, and now we're the wiser. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And joining us on OurTime.
Now, if you've been watching our segments, Cassandra Zaina is back with us, our regular physiotherapist, I can spit it out then, with our two lovely models. Yes, Allistair and Susan. Thank you for coming in again. Now, what are we doing this time, Cassandra?
Well, today we thought we'd have a look at shoulders. So it's an area that a lot of people have problems with. One of the really important things about shoulders is that the upper back is actually a very important part of reducing the load on the shoulder. So we're going to be incorporating some stretches in the upper back as well as the shoulder region.
Okay.
So just an easy one to start off with is just to open the front of your chest. Now, if I'll get Sue to turn around, because she'll probably be able to clasp her hands and stretch together. So you can see what's happening here. We're stretching through the pectoral muscles and the front of the shoulder joint.
Oh, gee, that feels nice when you do that.
It feels great, and because we've got our eyes in the front of our head, as we've been talking about in the past, often we're looking down and stooping and we don't realise we're getting stiff. So after you do that one and you relax out of that position, we'll just get them to reach across the chest. And this is a really good one for stretching the back of the shoulder joint. So it's really important for avoiding frozen shoulders and reducing tendinitis problems. After that, the next level up of stretch is by taking one hand up over your head and the other hand behind your back.
And if you can't do that, then you use a strap,
then
like
Allistair will
Allistair.
demonstrate, yeah. So you can use a strap or a towel, a hand towel, and this stretch, so the Allistair's left shoulder will be being stretched there. It is a strong stretch, so just go gently. It's a great one to get in the habit of doing every morning. Again, very good for preventing a frozen shoulder. So we're going to talk about some strengthening now, and Sue and Allistair are going to grab the elastics. And we're just going to talk about a simple exercise that a lot of surgeons recommend now to prevent the need for surgery. So keeping your elbows tucked in by your side and your chest open, you take your hands apart and back in. Lovely. And
it's not as easy as it looks. I've tried this. It's quite difficult.
Hard work, isn't it? And a more advanced version of that is to take your arms up, and it's a little bit like a lat pull down. You widen your hands as you bring the elastic down in front of the face. And again, that's working all of these lats down through that area. Great. And relax. And so
that one's been used a bit.
I think that one's ours been giving that a workout. So we're just going to relax now. Sue's going to show us a little bit of massage with the head maybe up that end, Sue. Thanks. And Al, we're going to show a really lovely little mobilising stretch.
So that's just like really having a tennis ball in your back.
Yeah,
place it in between your...
And you can use a tennis ball,
right?
But it's just a little bit firmer. Now with Allistair, I've got a little towel roll that's going in between his shoulder blades, and again the effect will be that it opens up the chest, as you can see there.
Cassandra, we're running out of time. I just want to thank our beautiful models here and for showing us all these fantastic exercises. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I hope you'll continue watching, because we'll have you back again,
Terrific.
please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
I thought Janice was doing exercises.
I have
Janice.
been. I'm exhausted, Malcolm. No, I'm not really.
I didn't see you do anything. But your shoulders feel better.
Absolutely.
Those two
$1 million.
lovely people did all the hard work,
I
all
know.
the hard lifting.
Oh, I was helpful.
You were very helpful. Thank you once again for joining us this time on Our Time. We hope you enjoy our program. We hope that you'll be watching next time. We're back with some more interesting people to present for you.
Hope you keep well and safe, and we'll see you then.